had a great example of how uh, not really polarizing, how attention grabbing the Cybertruck is over
Hmm.
the weekend, and it it fascinated me. Like my kids point out vehicles
Hmm.
when mostly EVs. They're mostly like stuck on the EV world for whatever reason.
Hmm.
They seem to think that, uh, or they seem to be drawn to those. But I was in LA and there was a prime example of how the Cybertruck is really attention getting
Hmm.
over other EVs, which was kind of interesting. They are my kids, but who am I? I'm the guy who tries to sell you t-shirts at thewhatcar.com/store.
Like the
Why
one you're
should
wearing.
like the one I'm wearing? If you tune into the video version that we've just started doing, that we do not promote, so don't tell your friends. It's a secret, you guys. But the youtube.com/ at the Wattcar, or go to thewalker.com and uh there'll be
Slash
this.
store.
Well, I'll get to the slash store in a second. There'll be a where I put the the podcast, the link to the podcast on the website is what I'm trying to say. We embed the video in there too, as well as on YouTube. If you go there, then you can see some of the merchandise that you could buy at thewalker.com/store. I mean, there's more on thewalker.com/store. Right now I'm wearing like a really big icon shirt that boom, if you're looking at the video.
The
And if you're
funky
not,
logo, as we call it.
yeah, the funky logo. Ed's got on a hat, an embroidered hat that's pretty cool. We also sell water bottles and all this other stuff. This helps support the blog and the podcast that we do, the free entertainment that we bring you with decades worth of experience that I supposedly was an automotive journalism, or was an automotive journalist. I guess maybe still am. I don't know, but I also
What
do
are we doing
content
now?
creation. Yeah, but that's kind of it's a little bit of that, a little bit. It's when I write, I do that. I don't know. Anyway, help support us. Buy a shirt.
Ed Sanchez, likewise, 20 plus years in automotive content creation and moderation. Current day job, automotive electronics industry analyst, and the Watt Car co-founder and contributor.
So I was downtown in LA,
Hmm.
crossing the street, and we see a Cybertruck. I didn't even notice it, but it was turning right away from us. And
Hmm.
my youngest was like, Cybertruck, Cybertruck. And my kids are like, oh, look, Cybertruck. I mean, we see him every day, so I don't know why. I don't know why this draws such attention to him, but they point out every single one that they see. So that turns, and at that moment, while that's turning right, there's another car, truck doing a U-turn,
Hmm.
and they didn't even notice it. It was a Hummer EV.
Oh,
And it just showed how similar they are, really. Remember when the Hummer EV came out and people were like, oh my goodness, they're $100,000. These things are so ridiculously expensive. Who's going to spend that
hmm.
much on a truck? Well, now try not spending $100,000 on an
Yeah.
EV truck. But when that one did its U turn, it did it in LA where there's just two lanes each way.
Hmm.
And it did a U turn in the two lanes.
Hmm.
I could never do that in my F 250.
Hmm.
That would have been
Well,
like
I
a
mean,
5 point turn.
I think rear steering helps with that.
And
But
it cranks like crazy. But my
hmm.
kids have noticed the rear steer on Cybertrucks, but they don't notice it on other vehicles.
Hmm.
It's just the Cybertruck gets all this attention. It is definitely, if it's not a win numerically for
Yeah.
Tesla, it is definitely a win for the image and attention
Attention.
getting.
Yeah.
And my kids don't really view it as a bad vehicle. They call them
Yeah.
out. It's like, maybe it was even before my generation. Slug bugs. You'd be driving
Okay.
along, you'd be like, slug bug yellow, and then you nail your sister in the arm. You just, and she's like, what are you doing? That
Yeah. Yeah.
little insight to my childhood. So it's kind of the modern that. I just haven't taught my kids yet that they should punch the kid next to them when they see a Cybertruck.
I'm sure their mother would appreciate that. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think except for a very close like inner circle that got to see it before it was revealed to the general public, I think the collective response to it when it was finally unveiled was shock, kind of. And then shock followed by ridicule, like, oh, look at that thing, so stupid, blah, blah, blah. And but I think that was kind of almost deliberate, is to make it so outrageous looking that you can't help but pay attention to it. And so from that standpoint, I think that gamble's paid off,
Yeah,
regardless of what you think of it.
I
It's hard to
definitely,
ignore.
yeah, I definitely didn't see its purpose styling wise
Yeah.
when they unveiled it, but I really loved the specs.
Hmm.
Since then, the specs have gone away. And so now I'm left confused by it. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I see them so often, literally daily. I see
Hmm.
these things
Hmm.
that now they've normalized to me.
Hmm.
And so I really like them in black. It used to be like maroon was my favorite color. Now
Hmm.
black is like they are slick in black. The thing that
Hmm.
bothers me is the hubcaps don't match. The black of the hubcaps don't match the black of the wrap
Hmm.
of the ones that I've seen. If those matched, it would be super slick.
Yeah,
But yeah, all in all, uh, who cares about Hummer EVs anymore? Apparently,
I guess. Well, we'll get to that in a little bit, but
yeah. Uh, right now, there was an article we talked about, or a thing we talked about with. I can't really remember why we were talking about it. We were talking about DJI drone bans and
mm-hmm.
how I think it passed the House and now it's going to the Senate, trying to ban DJI drones, not existing ones that have already been sold, but
Future
future
sales.
ones. So mine would be fine, I guess, and unless they go and make it retroactive, but that apparently doesn't seem to be in the cards. But that is all based on it being Chinese software tracking America somehow. I don't really know. I haven't
Hmm.
understood why there's a threat that is not already existing with Google Maps as to what
Hmm.
DJI can do. But sure, Congress seems to think that there's a threat. And I made the comment, this is going back a couple months, that I'll
Hmm.
be interested to see how Congress reacts and the government in general reacts to Chinese built cars. Because
Hmm.
I do not see a difference between a DJI drone and a car manufactured in China when it comes to modern vehicles, EV or not,
Hmm.
modern vehicles that have cameras, GPS, they got
Hmm.
everything that a drone has,
Hmm.
minus it can't go vertical,
Hmm.
which eventually that'll come if you
Back to the
believe
Future.
if you believe EVTOLs are on
Yeah.
their way, which is a whole other conversation. But now who is this? The U.S. Commerce Department is proposing prohibiting Chinese software and hardware in connected and autonomous vehicles.
Hmm. So
So,
this is going a step beyond. I mean, we've previously announced, and I think close to or the day after you listen to this podcast, the 100% tariffs will officially go into effect, I believe. Um, so that's already been announced. That's already going to happen, I believe. So this is on top of that. So
so
I,
not
I
only are we going to put a 100% tariff on your
mhm.
vehicle, but we're also not going to let you bring it in.
Well, well, this is a de facto ban, effectively. And I believe this also applies to possibly not Chinese built vehicles that use components sourced from China. So basically, that means
Everything.
if you're G effectively, if you're GM, Volvo, Hyundai, Ford, whoever, you're going to have to find an alternate supplier for these if these components are currently being sourced from China. So this is, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on how strictly they enforce it, but this has major implications for the automotive supply chain in terms of sourcing, lead times, suppliers, everything.
So
So,
software is effective 2027, and the
mhm.
ban on hardware is January 2029 slash
Or they're saying the 2030 model year. Um, so yeah, I mean that's what for. I mean for software, that's effectively 2-3 years away. So relatively speaking, the software might be easier to kind of shift a little more quickly, just because it's not a physical product, and there's a pretty big global development community. So I think that's going to be less of an issue than the hardware. Um,
yeah, you can't just like
yeah.
quickly ramp up hardware production. Like you need a facility. With software, I'm not a big software programmer. Like
Hmm.
I learned to program. I taught
Yeah,
myself BASIC when I
yeah,
was a kid, and then I took some Pascal lessons like in high school.
yeah.
But generally, you need a computer and somebody really smart,
Hmm.
and then you can program. With hardware, you kind of need a factory
Yeah,
and many people and specific machines. It's
yeah.
not something that
So
you can just say, okay, now you're doing this in Kentucky.
yeah, so basically the 4 to 5 year lead time, I think they gave that with the recognition that there would be an adjustment period that suppliers and automakers would to in order to be compliant with this. So anyway, but has a lot of people kind of shaken up in the industry. Um, I don't know if this is overblown or not. Again, I'm not sitting in these classified meetings and seeing the stuff they're privy to, but I guess they feel this is enough of a potential threat. They've, you know, they're going to propose this. So,
I very much tie together the DJI ban and
hmm
this
hmm
into one. And I don't see anybody else really doing that. So I don't know if I'm
hmm
completely, you know,
well, no, I mean, fundamentally, it's the
wrong.
same thing. It's vision, it's cameras, potentially audio, um,
Location,
location.
it ties everything
Yeah.
together.
And again, when it comes to, I guess the concern is that China could be embedding basically a means to transmit this data back to China, like kind of furtively, kind of embedding it in there that wouldn't be discovered unless you did like extensive reverse engineering to discover that. But they'd be shipping it out just like anything else. Oh yeah, here's your component, here's your video module or your,
Yeah, I'm
the
still not seeing what on earth they're scared of. I just don't see it. I was doing a little bit of digging about
hmm
the drone ban,
hmm
and there is coalition of agriculture because it agriculture uses a
hmm
lot of this stuff. They and apparently they do a lot of spraying of things. Like instead of using airplanes, they'll use drones now,
hmm hmm
apparently, and they
yeah.
used DJI drones for a
hmm
lot of this stuff. So I was reading this article, and they're called agri spray drones, I guess,
hmm hmm
and they're predominantly Chinese built, and
hmm
it makes it difficult for smaller farmers,
I'm
according to
assuming
this
it's for
article.
like fertilizer or pesticides or
Yeah,
whatever.
things like that. And so there was a company that one of the Chinese companies then
hmm
created tried to do a workaround. They created a company called Anzu Robotics,
hmm
and that was US based drone supplier to get
hmm
around this.
hmm
And initially it looked like that was going to be allowed, and then they've changed this. They amended the bill to
hmm
say no, 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 that doesn't count. Like you
hmm
can't just
Not even
start.
a subsidiary,
Yeah, you
like
can't even
no
just start a
connection.
company. Yeah,
Yeah.
which I'm like, well, that this effectively, if they take that and they write that into something with the Chinese cars,
hmm
that's Volvo, Lotus,
hmm
uh, like a bunch of,
Polestar,
uh, yeah, like I don't know,
GM and Ford also have some. Well, they're ICE models currently, but they probably had some stuff in the pipeline coming from China.
has
Um,
Tesla brought in any of its Chinese built
Not to
cars?
the U.S. that I'm aware of. Canada, China built Model 3s are sold in Canada. And in terms of the battery packs, which is affected by the, the basically the tariffs we talked about a few weeks ago, the LFP batteries are sourced from CATL in China. I believe those are subject to a 25% tariff. So even like US built, just kind of the standard, basically the current equivalent of my model currently uses CATL LFP batteries, even the ones built in Fremont. So potentially the prices on those could go up. Um,
And they
but
couldn't
in
just bring
terms
the
of the
cars in
whole,
whole. They could bring components of it in, but those would be
some,
subject to the tariff. This is confusing.
or I mean, well, and I mean, if you're talking about like cameras or infotainment, anything like that, then that I think that would be subject to this ban too, because this is fairly wide ranging. From what I've read, it even includes like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cellular modules, anything like that. So It's this is a big deal. So,
Yeah,
um,
this I
yeah.
I'm all for us making cars in America.
Hmm.
I don't see the concern as far as tracking goes. I see the concern with Chinese made vehicles and technology where we no longer have the ability to produce anything, and China,
Hmm.
we are beholden to China to
Hmm.
an extent that we shouldn't be.
I'd say
I'm
we're already there in a lot
yeah,
of
we're already
ways,
there, but
but
I think we're there kind of to a healthy degree
mm,
in some cases because we rely on China, China relies on us. That's
mhm.
it's long gone are the days where it was, well, we've got nukes and they've got nukes, and so you don't want to go to war because of that. Well, now it's, well, they make chips, we buy a lot of stuff, we make this, they buy a lot of that. It's this.
Yeah,
The mutually assured destruction now is
is trade.
economically and in
Yeah,
trade. Not, we still got the nukes,
yeah.
but it's more realistically, it's in the trade that can bring
Hmm.
us all crumbling down.
Hmm.
So I enjoy having a nice balance,
Hmm.
but I'm not seeing the fear of what Chinese software is going to do in a car. It's it's a mystery to me, and I've not read anything with the DJI drone ban that tells me what they're scared of there
Uh,
either.
Again, like I said, I'm sure in like some classified meetings of like the I don't know the security subcommittee or something, they've found out scary stuff about you know what the Chinese are embedding in some of their electronics components. I don't know. I I'd like to
I think
think
that's the problem. You
this
don't
isn't
know.
just
Nobody
fun.
knows.
Yeah.
Nobody is saying what evidence there is on this. Like, it's
Yeah.
all fear based, as far as we know.
Our from uh, I'll grant you from the casual observer's perspective, this seems like it's kind of FUD driven. My sense is there are some things we don't know about that maybe have give this some credence, but I don't know.
I I think the technologies that we think everybody has are far overblown. When the Chinese end up flying a balloon over America, we are not at the point where they are using surreptitious drone footage and car software.
Well,
They're flying freaking balloons
well,
over the country. This
I
is
mean,
so like
I'll be honest. I think TikTok is probably a bigger security risk than any of this stuff is.
I can see where TikTok would be potentially a huge problem
Yeah.
for how it disseminates information
Hmm.
to and from various countries and to and from various age groups.
Hmm.
I could make that argument. I just look up in the sky and you see the balloon and you go, wow, yeah, they're not as far technologically with this.
Well, we shall see. But this again, a lot of people in the industry are kind of having a minor freak out about this.
So
Um,
moving across a little bit of water to say South Korea,
yeah.
Kia has announced when NACS is coming to all of its vehicles.
Hmm.
And I know nothing about this beyond what I just said.
Yeah. So
So
again,
other
this
than we
is
already knew this, didn't we? Or is this
uh,
now they're getting more specific?
two. They're getting a little more. I mean, so I'm trying to remember the exact date. I think it was probably late last year, actually. This follows a whole domino of like Ford, GM, Honda, blah blah blah. Basically, the whole industry, with a few exceptions, saying they're going to adopt an ACS. Hyundai Group also announced, yeah, we're gonna do it starting in 2025. We already know the 2025 model Ionic 5 is going to have a native NACS port. Um, so Kia has just kind of announced their plan with this. Kind of like Ford, they're saying anyone who purchased a new, I guess there's specifically the EV9 or EV6 from September 4th onward will receive a complimentary NACS adapter. Those that bought one before that, I guess they'll sell you one for an undisclosed amount, but I think GM said they're charging 225 for theirs anyway. Um, what's interesting is they're not just going to offer one; they're going to offer three. And I guess this will cover, I guess, the pre and post NACS cars. So they're going to offer NACS to CCS1, CCS1 to NACS, like assuming that's kind of what I currently have with my
Mm-hmm.
car. Um, and then a J1772 to NACS, so which I also have to charge at level 2. So I guess they're going to cover the full gamut for whatever car you get and whatever adapter you want slash need. So anyway, I guess that's what makes this one a little different, kind of interesting, is they're going to offer three different variations. But
Well, hopefully none of those adapters are coming from China because they'll ban those too.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I again, it just depends on how wide ranging and how aggressively they're going to enforce that ban. But anyway,
I I can't wait for a year from now, maybe a year and a half,
yeah.
when all the vehicles, all the new vehicles, so Ford, GM, Kia, Hyundai, that whole group, Rivian, Lucid, everybody's new vehicles are NACS. They're
Hmm.
all J3400, and we can finally see how the charging infrastructure holds up to that.
Hmm.
Because Teslas are known for the supercharger uptime
Hmm.
and the ease of use. You plug it
Hmm.
in, boom, it just works. And now you're dirtying that. You are putting third party that Tesla doesn't control. So Tesla's very much like Apple. Apple
Hmm.
controls everything. Everybody's like, "Oh, how do you have?" Because I have an Android phone. How do you have that? You just get an iPhone and it just works. It's like, yeah, because you pair it with your iPhone with your Mac or
Hmm.
your MacBook or whatever, and
Hmm.
everything's Apple. Everything talks. The software you use is designed by Apple. Everything. It's
Hmm.
a walled off garden. Everything
Hmm.
works because they control everything. As soon as you go to Android or like Windows, nothing works
Hmm.
because there's so many variations of the same
Yeah.
thing. And this is now opening up that walled garden
Hmm.
with the supercharger network. Are you now going to have in a year and a half, are you going to start hearing about superchargers where they don't work? The 25% that you keep hearing the number, like 25% of CCS chargers don't work in
Hmm.
various studies. Is that is it all because they're breaking? Like it's a physical problem? Or is a lot of that software oriented
Yeah.
where the communication system is broken? And if that's the case, say that's even half of it. So now
Hmm.
you'd suddenly have like supercharger uptime that's like, I'm sure in the 90 something percentage of
Hmm.
plug in and successful charges. Is it suddenly going to drop by 12% because of
Uh,
software issues?
I think a lot of it is going to be a lot of the issues in this transition are going to be software related. The other thing that will be an issue is so a lot of the communication from these third party, well, I'd say Tesla probably included in this. They use cellular communication with the charging station to like validate the account and kind of do the handshake. So if the cell network goes down, a lot of times that disables the charging. Um, Not so much with the new installations, but with older installations that relied on two. I know it sounds like ancient history, but believe it or not, 2G and 3G, those networks in the US have been completely shut off. So unless these stations have been upgraded with the 4G, basically modem to communicate, those stations have no way of communicating. Um, so and that's still even with the 4G modem, communication is still an issue with a lot of these chargers. So I'd say the bigger, I mean, certainly there will be some hardware failures and incompatibilities or whatever, cut cables or connectors that are kind of trashed. But yeah, a lot of it's going to be software and communications related.
So in a
Um,
year's time, expect tons of stories
Mhm.
Once we get past this winter and you get all the stories about EVs can't be driven in cold because the
Mhm.
range degrades, we got to go through that annual influx of
Mhm.
stories during the winter. Once we get through that, we pop out into the summertime where range is great again.
Mhm.
Expect to see all these stories about superchargers not being as reliable
Charging
as
on Teslas. Yeah.
yes, and that they're not as great as what everybody thought. That's the next thing I predict this time next year. That's what we're talking about.
Okay. I'll add something to that. And I think this is going to be a little more of an edge case, but I guarantee you some people are going to write about it and it will happen.
I've got my pen out, by
S-
the way. Here, what am I writing? What
yes.
am
Okay.
I...
So as we've discussed before, NACS and Tesla are not the same thing. They're related. They are not the same. So like, I mean, I shared I had to do the hardware upgrade on my car to be NACS compatible. So older Tesla, I think pre 2020 Teslas without the hardware upgrade cannot use third party NACS chargers. So I can because I had that done. But I think a lot of like Model S and Model X owners, some of the early Model 3 owners will maybe drive their cars up to third party, networks, EVgo, Electrify America with an Axe plug. Think, oh, okay, this fits. Plug it in. Error message. Not knowing that there is an additional step involved that they need to do the hardware upgrade. So I think we'll hear about that a little bit. Maybe not to the extent of the other, but
Can you update like a 2012 Model S?
I believe so. Yeah, I
Okay.
think they offer the upgrade basically from 2012 Model S onward. In fact, I as soon as I heard that eventually they were going to offer the upgrade, I was like chomping at the bit to do it. But initially, they prioritized Model S, Model X owners over Model 3,
Mm.
and it even said like, "Oh, we're not doing this for your car yet," you know. So,
Then had Nelson from The Simpsons just like, ha ha.
yeah. So, yeah, I think it's not going to be an entirely smooth transition in this new rainbows and unicorns world of NACS and J3400. There's going to be some bumps along the road, but
And a lot of fascinating articles written
yes,
with fear, uncertainty, and doubt embedded
yeah.
into them. We buried the lead this week. We didn't actually. The Chinese uh, hardware and software was the lead for sure. But the second lead, we buried the second lead, which is Thor unveils a plug-in hybrid, which I got the press release and I kind of skimmed over it and was like, yeah, I'm not really interested. I mean, Thor's had like,
Mhm.
was it Thor? Didn't they have like an electric? They've been doing. I know Winnebago had something.
Yeah. So originally, to go way back in the Wayback Machine, you remember Detlefs, the
Yep.
German
Yeah.
RV company, and they
Oh,
had the
just for
power.
clarification, real quick, everybody. Thor RVs.
Yeah,
If you don't know Thor,
global company,
yeah, we've kind of jumped out of cars here. Okay, so Detlefs with their powered trailer.
power trailer. They did a kind of a proof of concept. They did a drive, I think, from like northern Italy to Switzerland or Austria or
Drove over like the Alps with an
yeah, they
Audi
basically they drove
SUV.
through the Alps with I think an Audi Q5 or Q7, and they wanted to demonstrate the I guess the advantage or the potential of a powered trailer to basically preserve range, because the big knock on EVs towing is it massively degrades the range, usually by the magnitude of about 50% or more sometimes. So they're saying, okay, well, if you do a powered trailer, you don't, with the extra little push, it conserves that range.
I think in that test it conserved
Mhm.
all of the range. Like I
Pretty
think
much, yeah.
it was like it it pulled its own weight, so to speak.
Yeah, basically there was almost effectively zero range degradation over an unladen vehicle. That
Which is
the
impressive.
car the car arrived at the destination with the predicted unladen range, and the trailer kind of helped along. Anyway, long story short, so Detlefs corporately, it's a German RV travel trailer manufacturer, corporately is owned by Thor. Okay, so and I think uh Airstream, I don't know if it's I don't think it's quite in production yet. Airstream has said they're also going to do a power trailer. We also saw it CES and the LA Auto Show, the Pebble concept.
Mm-hmm.
So there are other companies that are doing this. So anyway, but so Thor, I think is fairly progressive here in terms of kind of trying to advance the technology in the recreational vehicle market. So that's why I thought this was noteworthy. A little funny point. I don't know if you kind of read the little bullet points I put, but I know when BYD announced the Shark and it had a 1.6 liter range extender,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, that engine's so tiny, it's useless. How's it going to do anything? Well, guess how big the engine is in
This
this
shocked
thing.
me. This absolutely shocked me. So back with the BYD Shark, I was like, man,
Hmm.
in America, if you've got a truck with anything less than a V8, like, I don't know. I mean, some people are getting the turbo fours, but I actually sold a washing machine to somebody and he came to my house, picked it up,
Uh-huh.
and his truck was so quiet.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, man, is this on? And he goes, yeah, it's a four cylinder. It's amazing.
What was it, just out of
It was
curiosity?
I think it was a Chevy something. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It was a half ton. And he said it was like a turbo four cylinder or something.
Oh yeah, the Turbo Max, yeah.
Yeah. So
2.7,
it
yeah.
it like you could barely hear it when it was on.
Hmm.
It was pretty sweet. He said he liked
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
that's slightly off topic. In America, you need a V8 in a truck.
Yeah.
And so a pickup truck, I don't really know if that works. Their plug-in hybrid is, according to you, so says
Uh-huh.
you, 1.4 liter four cylinder
Uh-huh.
in a Class A RV. That's the things that are shaped like a school
Yes.
bus, a brick. These things are
Yes.
massive. And I looked at that and was like, that's not going to work. But then I read the rest of the stuff about this and
Uh-huh.
kind of on board. I kind of think this is a home run.
Potentially. So that's, to be clear, the engine in this case is only a range extender, a generator. It's not connected to the wheels. So what is connected to the wheels, I think, is plenty powerful. I mean, just from the figures I'm seeing.
Yeah,
What do you
so
think?
so it's 30, it's I guess four banks of 35 kilowatt hour batteries that they have
Yes.
distributed around, and then presumably they run them in series or parallel or however they are going to do
Yeah.
this in order to get 800 volts out of the thing.
Hmm.
So
Total
uh
capacity of 140 kilowatt hours for the
which
battery packs.
which is pretty good. Then they do a
Hmm.
rear mounted electric motor that's 440 horsepower. What is that? Peak and
Peak.
280 horsepower continuous. So is there going to be like a push to pass button on
Yeah.
this? Is like an F1
Turbo
truck?
mode.
Yeah. And the horsepower doesn't really matter because it's 1,140 pound-feet of torque,
Yeah.
which you need on these things because this is going to be heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, a Class A is heavy.
Probably, I'm guessing 18 to 20,000 pounds, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what a Class
Yeah.
A's
Yeah.
are, but they're huge and
Yeah.
they're massive. But have they given a range with this? I haven't looked this up. No, they did give a range.
Yeah.
Okay, so the range is
I think they claim like 500 miles or something.
500 miles combined, and it is 150 miles on
All
battery
electric.
only.
Yeah.
And the beauty of this is, now granted, you put stuff in it that could be empty.
Hmm.
So with
Hmm.
no liquid in the tanks, no clothes in the cupboards, no toys and junk whatnot in
No
there.
beer in the fridge.
But if you, well, and I'm out. I'm out. If you don't fill up your water tank,
Hmm.
your fresh tank until you get where you're going,
Hmm.
which I would argue a lot of people in Class A's are not boondocking. They're probably going to RV parks where you could fill up with water when you get where
Hmm.
you're going. That's probably the majority of people with these big
Hmm.
luxury Class A's. They want they want Wi-Fi. They want a
Hmm.
swimming pool. They want all of these
Hmm.
features. So they can drive with 10 gallons in the fresh water tank. I mean, all you need to do is flush the toilet on the way to
Hmm.
the campsite. So they can drive with these things pretty light. And
Hmm.
they're saying 150 miles, assume that's completely empty. Then before the range extender really
Hmm.
kicks in, you could do most of these trips like fully electric. Now it's not going to work
Hmm.
exactly like this because
Hmm.
the range extender is going to kick in when you're going up a hill
Hmm.
or if there's
Hmm.
a lot of wind. It's not like it's going to be all electric, but I'm sure that
Hmm.
you could push a little button that's just
Hmm.
you know, I just want to be electric because you're creeping in at 10 o'clock at night and you
Hmm.
don't want to have, you know, this thing making noise. So you just go in on all electric.
Yeah.
But man, it I don't know. Seems like a winner to me. This seems
Yeah.
really good. This
No.
seems way better than an all electric one.
Yeah.
Where my fear is you get where you're going
Hmm.
and
Then
you'd
you're
have
stuck.
yeah, you if you don't have plugins or you don't
Yeah.
have even if you had 240-volt 50 amp connection, which you would have at
Hmm.
most of these RV parks where you might park something like this,
Hmm.
it's still going to take you if you this is a 140 kilowatt hour battery.
Hmm.
Say you've got to recharge 120 of that when you get where you're going.
Hmm.
That's doable over a night.
Hmm.
You know, you pull in, you plug in, you can work off those batteries as house batteries, I'm sure. I
Hmm.
don't I
Hmm.
don't think they kind of went into that, but you've got plenty of time to recharge that. If they put this with like a 500 kilowatt hour battery in it,
Hmm.
you might not be there long enough at the campsite to charge the thing on the
Yeah.
connection that's
To
there.
make a difference. Yeah.
So I think this is a home run because you've got
Yeah.
the safety and security of the gas engine.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, this is still the concept stage. This is not production, and we also don't know the cost. There was no discussion of price on this. So
People that buy Class A's spend 250 grand like it's
yeah, so
bubble
it's like,
gum.
so
Like
what?
they just don't care.
Yeah.
So I don't you can mortgage these things like they're a
Hmm.
house.
Yeah, you
Uh
get 10, 15-year financing. Yeah.
yeah, and these are generally luxury purchases. Like
Hmm.
nobody's really getting one of these to live in.
Hmm.
If you are homeless and you're getting something to live in, you're
Hmm.
not buying a new Class A RV.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm not, you know,
But
if
what's kind of funny about that is you'd think, oh, there's six-figure purchases, all that. And I'm sure you've seen this if you go on RV forums, they're constantly talking about their fuel economy.
yeah, well, it's because they get like 4 miles to the gallon.
Yeah. So you'd think, oh, well, if they can afford that, they won't care about fuel economy. Uh, No, they still do. That's a big deal. So I think from a cost of operation standpoint, if this can show a clear advantage over a diesel, I think there could potentially be a pretty significant market for this.
And you don't have the thing idling in like when you're loading it up, or you don't have
Hmm.
the fuel smell because it's all family stuff.
Hmm.
So uh, I think this is a great way to go. I don't think price really
Hmm.
matters. This is similar to when Airstream had
Hmm.
their electric one, and
Hmm.
I don't know if they even released a price, or maybe it was like 150 grand, but it was a small one or something.
Well, it was
Airstream,
based on a Transit. It was a smaller,
no,
I
they had
guess.
like a travel one, like a travel
Okay.
trailer,
Okay. Oh,
and
trailer. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Airstreams are expensive to begin with.
Yeah.
And so it's an excellent
Hmm.
market to get into when your
Hmm.
customer doesn't care about price.
Hmm.
They want the thing.
Hmm.
And if it's say this costs 350,000 instead of 300,000 that they were going to spend or
Hmm.
275,000, I don't think that makes a big difference. You
Hmm.
can you can finance it over the long period of
Hmm.
time. You're already wealthy, upper middle
Yeah.
class, at least when you're purchasing these things. These are not your entry level class C van life.
Hmm.
Like my travel trailer is 25 years old. I am
Hmm.
not this market, but I totally think this is the right way for
Yeah.
them to go
Well,
in
I
this
mean,
market.
yeah, added to, I mean, what you brought up about the attributes, whether you're pulling into the campsite at midnight or leaving at 5 a.m., you don't have this big clattery diesel firing up and waking up the entire campground. You basically just kind of whoosh in and whoosh out, you know, or or I don't know whatever the onomatopoeia is for EVs. Buzz in,
Uh,
buzz out, and buzz off. I don't know.
uh, yeah, no, home run.
Yeah.
I
So,
want to go on to our last topic and then call it a day.
all right.
'Cause I'm going to be saying whoosh in, whoosh out for the rest of the day. I want to whoosh out of here. So, Volvo
Yeah. Volvo
has
CE, so or construction equipment. So this, I think, related to their truck division, but kind of semi-separate.
so
Yeah.
you're not buying one of these down at the
No.
corner. dealership. They have shown off some autonomous construction equipment. Is this also electric autonomous?
One of them is fully electric. One has a quote range extender, even though it's not going very far. So I guess an hour's extender. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mentioned this was probably a year or so ago that I was
Hmm.
watching some program about a big earth mover. In fact, we talked about this the other
Hmm.
week with Lincoln Electric, with the interview
Hmm.
there, where it was this kind of heavy industrial uh, equipment and how well it is for how fine how how this is the right place for
Hmm.
electrification is
Hmm.
this super
For
heavy
cost of
duty.
operation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a while ago, I was talking about this one. It was like I don't know if it was underground mining, but it was mining. They used one of those
Hmm.
giant dump trucks where the tires are like 10 feet tall,
Hmm.
and it just went from one port, like on the one side of the construction area, to the other side of the mining
Hmm.
thing, and it would just run back and forth 24 hours a day.
Hmm.
And when it
And it would
went in,
recharge on both
they,
sides. Yeah.
yeah, they plug it in, they do the loading, they unplug, they drive to the other side, they do the loading, and it's fantastic. And
Hmm.
if you get to mines, you get underground, you get to where you're idling these things around other people.
Hmm.
This is the way to go.
Yeah.
So what are they talking with? I mean,
So
autonomous as well is the way to go with,
yeah, yeah.
this.
Well, what's interesting on the truck, and I'm assuming this is off highway. I mean, this is like construction and like mining equipment. There's no cab. It is literally a dump bed with wheels is the truck.
This looks weird. I just looked at pictures. This is like when you see a picture of somebody with three eyeballs, and you're like, it just looks a
Wait a
little bit
minute.
weird.
Yeah. So there's that. And then the kind of the trippiest one is you've seen like the asphalt rollers where it's almost like a tractor with a big, huge round cylinder on the front.
Hmm.
They're so their autonomous asphalt roller they showed is just the roller, but it's actually a two-piece roller. So from a distance, it looks like it's one big cylindrical roller. It's actually two. So I'm assuming the reason they did that is it can kind of turn. So basically, if you speed up or slow down the rollers or you reverse one, it conceivably could do like a 100 or 360-degree turn kind of in its own circle.
How does
Or
it balance?
I'm assuming there's some sort of like balancing. Well, I mean, think about the one wheels or the unicycles. I mean, it's just, you know,
Yeah, is that what this is? Like there's um why am I blanking on the name of the thing? The
one wheel
no, the thing that security guards were using for a while, that it
Segway.
was the Segway. Is this like a Segway steamroller?
Kind of,
Or
yeah. Yeah, it's
pretty
kind of
cool.
trippy. It's like, what? I almost feel like it should have like a little robot face on it or something, but
Well,
anyway,
hopefully none of the software from this Volvo thing
goes
is
rogue.
made in China.
What?
This
Well, okay, so interesting. I mean, and again, like I love to go into the weeds. So Volvo Cars is owned by Geely, a Chinese company. Volvo Trucks is a separate company. Now, I actually think Geely does have a minority
and are
stake.
they Russia owned?
No, I actually do think Geely has a minority stake in Volvo Trucks, but Volvo Trucks is a Swedish company, still headquartered in Sweden. Corporate ownership is Swedish. So as far as I know, again, I don't know where they source all the components, but I don't think this would be subject to that. So,
No, I wonder. I don't know construction.
well, you
I
used to
wonder if
work in
this is gonna.
construction when you first moved to
I
LA.
did, but I worked in an office in construction. I would go to the work sites, but it was usually to deliver a pickup truck or a printer or something.
Ah,
I was not into. I tried to get. They trained everybody on a forklift, and so you were
uh-huh.
like forklift certified. And so I was like, "Oh, you should train me on that," because that was like right up my alley. I'd love to learn how to drive a
Well, I've
forklift. They
got
were
a
like,
forklift story for you, but
they
anyway,
they were like, "No, we're not trusting you with a forklift."
probably for good reason. Certainly not mine, because I actually did work a summer job in like a construction, and again, kind of similar to your situation. I was based at like their central depot, their supply depot. So I generally didn't go out to the sites, and when I did, it was the cleanup crew.
Mm-hmm.
but they let me loose with the forklift, and I promptly uh, popped one of their windows in their warehouse. So
You
yeah,
no longer worked at the
yeah,
company by
that's
the end of the
the end
day.
of that. Well, no, they just didn't put me on forklift duty. They said,
They learned
okay,
their lesson.
do this other dirty job. So
Let's call that a day. I think that's
yeah,
a nice, solid episode. It's time to we whooshed in. It's time to whoosh out. And while we're whooshing out, I will direct you to the walkcar.com/store where you can help support this podcast. I've got on my Walk Car shirt, and I suggest Ed's got on his hat. I would suggest you go there. One of the ones that I'll probably order next will be the EVAF shirt. I kind of like that. Not everything has our logo on it. If you got any ideas for any shirts, email us hello@thewalkcar.com, and we can make a shirt that you can then order, and then that will help support the blog and the podcast. It's not a very scalable method of getting support doing one by one. But my hope is if enough people email in with some ideas, then we get more ideas that people like, and then more orders, and yada yada yada. Profit. So uh,
yeah.
everything that we talked about in the podcast is also embedded into the show notes. The show notes you can find in the podcast and also at thewalkcar.com. Um, you know what I haven't promoted for the last few weeks
Hmm.
is the walkcar.com/advertise for big companies. Say,
Thor?
or Geely, if you want to if you want to get your story out there as to why Americans should not be scared of Chinese hardware and software and ban your stuff.
Well,
Hello at
I was
thewalkcar.com.
hoping for Thor. Maybe they'd loan us one of these for a camping trip.
I really,
That would be fun.
yeah, maybe, yeah, Thor. I need to get in touch with them. They did
Yes.
contact us for this, and I looked at it, but I gave it such a brief look that I need to go back. I need to get back
Yeah,
into
but
it.
now that you've looked at the specs, you're like,
Yeah, now I'm all in on this. I think this is the way to go.
yeah.
So I'm going to start that conversation, whether they like it or not. Next week's very special episode, you guys. So you want to tune back in. We've got an interview, and it even got Ed to be a client. So it sold him. Maybe it'll sell you. So tune back in next week. Whoosh in next week, and
Right now we're whooshing out.
but right now we're whooshing out. See ya.